You see, comparison, it is not just a distraction. It is a capacity thief. The thing about it is that you can love God with all your heart, be passionate about what He placed in you, and still feel that you don't have the strength or the capacity to carry it out. And you see, the enemy, he is so strategic. He will use comparison to pull you off your assignment. And it starts small. You will scroll a little. Then you find yourself doing it again. And before you know it, it becomes a habit. And suddenly you are not just watching other people online, you are measuring. So now you feel behind. Now you are questioning yourself. Why can't I be like her? Why is it taking me so long? So today, I'm sharing 5 lessons that will help you protect your mind, break the comparison trap, and stay faithful to your mission. So have you ever heard about the passage in the Bible about the ant? If you haven't, let me give you a quick rundown. So this story is taken from Proverbs 6, and it starts from verse 6. So Solomon began something like this. Go to the ant, consider her ways, and be wise. And I love that word consider. Because consider doesn't mean to just glance. It means to observe long enough to catch the key patterns, then apply them. And that's totally the opposite of the kind of comparison most of us do every day. Now, comparison often ignores context, the process, the season, and the behind the scenes. It's often driven by your emotions, envy, jealousy, and that feeling of maybe I am behind. But when you really look at the ant, she is disciplined. She is consistent. She is prepared. She doesn't wait for a crisis to happen to start building. She works without applause. She stores while it's calm. And that also tells me something about God. He cares about your stewardship, how you use your time, your energy, and yes, your body. Because your calling requires you to have capacity. So let's break down 5 important lessons the ant teaches us. So lesson number 1 is seasons don't last forever. And I really need you to hear this, especially if you're in a hard season right now, where you're tired, stretched, frustrated, and even wondering, God, have you deserted me? Because one of the sneakiest way comparison steals your peace is this. You only see people in their good season, but you don't see what it took to get there. So you don't see the pruning, the lonely process, tears, the nights they cry out, God, I don't know if I could do this. So what you end up doing is comparing your winter to somebody else's summer. And that's why comparison is a trap. It makes you judge your life by someone else's highlight while you're still living through the process. But the interesting part is that scripture doesn't pretend hard seasons are fun, but it does teaches you what to do with them. And so James 1:2-4 says something like this. Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Now let's pause there, because that phrase count it is key. So it's not about feeling instantly happy in a situation. It doesn't mean fake a smile. It means you get to decide how you're going to interpret this season. So James is basically saying, don't let the trial tell you what it means. You decide what it means. And he gives us a hint as to how to interpret it. Trials can be occasion for joy, not because they feel good, but because of what the process can produce in you once you submit to it. And I know this is a real tough perspective to embrace. I know I went through that phase as well. But I want you to be comforted by this fact. Difficult seasons aren't meant to break you. What God is really trying to do is to grow you in areas that you can't develop when life is smooth. It's like gold in fire. Now, fire doesn't destroy real gold, but it does reveal what is genuine and burns off what doesn't belong. And that's what basically hard seasons can do. They expose your weak areas, they purify your motive, they help you to develop endurance, they build your character. So yes, your season might feel heavy, but it's also temporary. And so if you let God work in it, you wouldn't just survive the season, you will come up with character. So you start being led by your feelings and start being led by God. You will come up with more clarity, so you know how to move forward without panic. You will increase your capacity, your endurance, patience, and emotional strength. You will also increase your discernment, so you stop entertaining every thought, distraction, and demand. And so I want to remind you, Seasons don't last forever. But what God builds in you in this season will help to carry you in the next one. So lesson number 1 talks about seasons don't last forever. So now let's move on to lesson number 2, which is prepare for the storm. So the ant doesn't wait for winter to show up and then panic. She gathers while the ground is still warm. She stores while food is still available. Because she knows one thing, winter will come. And so let me remind you what James 1:26 says. Count it all joy when you face trials. Now that word when matters because it means pressure isn't a possibility, it is a promise. So storms are a part of life. They will come. Busy seasons will come. Spiritual attacks will come. And yes, even changes in your body after parties, those seasons will come as well. So the question isn't if, the question is will you be prepared? Because so many women are living in reaction mode, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So they wait until burnout to hit, until their mood crashes, until symptoms get louder, until they're overwhelmed, irritated, and running on fumes. And then they try to build capacity in the middle of the storm. Sounds crazy, right? But the act reminds us wisdom is to prepare in the good season so you don't panic under pressure. So let's talk about what preparing looks like. It means you build reserve before you need them. So spiritually, you're in the Word, you're praying, you're staying connected so that when the storm hits, you are not trying to find God, you are already anchored in Him. Mentally, you set boundaries that protect your focus because distraction will multiply when life gets heavy. Physically, you're prioritizing your sleep, you're nourishing your body, you're moving, so your nervous system isn't fragile when pressure rises. Because when you prepare early, you don't just survive winter, you remain steady, you stay clear headed, you stay faithful. You can still thrive even in the storm. So lesson number 1 was seasons don't last forever. Lesson number 2 was prepare before the storm. So now let's move on to lesson number 3. Consistency beats intensity. Now the ant doesn't gather everything it needs one time and then disappear for a month. It gathers a little at a time every day because consistency is like compound interest. You make small deposit that doesn't look impressive today, but eventually adds up over time. And this is where a lot of women get stuck because we underestimate the power of small habits. I guess because they don't give us instant results. So we like to go hard for a week and then feel guilty when we can't keep up. So let's talk about the science behind this. So your brain rewires through a process called neuroplasticity. So when you repeat a behavior, your brain treats it like, that matters. Let me make it simpler for her. That's why small actions done daily start to feel more automatic over time. But in the beginning, new habits often take more willpower and decision making. But with repetition, your brain starts running that routine on autopilot. So it becomes less about forcing yourself to do something and more about who you have trained yourself to be. But pushing hard can give you short-term boosts of motivation, adrenaline, and excitement. But oftentimes it doesn't stick because you're unable to sustain that pace. And so the brain doesn't register it as your new normal. Now, this is the key part. Consistency is what makes change to stick because repetition is what builds the wiring. And so the act reminds you, you don't need to be extreme, especially if you end up disappearing for a few months afterwards. But one thing you do need to be is consistent. So lesson number 1 was seasons don't last forever. Lesson number 2 was to prepare before the storm. Lesson number 3 was talking about the importance of being consistent. So now let's move on to lesson number 4. Systems create freedom. Now, I never attend an ant conference, but I don't believe ants get out every day and be like, what should I do today? How do I start? Because they already have a simple process in place. They gather, store, and then repeat. And because it has a process, it's not overwhelmed or struggling with decision fatigue. It just executes. And that's why it wins. Because honestly, willpower is fragile. It will run out when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when hormones are shifting, when life gets busy, when pressure hits. But having a system that carries you when your motivation can't. But a lot of women, they keep trying harder instead of building a life that makes follow through easier. So let's talk about what a simple system can look like. So you schedule your most important tasks before the day starts, stealing your attention. You have a non-negotiable bedtime routine because sleep is where capacity is rebuilt. You focus on building movement into your day, like aiming for 10,000 steps daily. You keep your water bottle to hand so you remain hydrated throughout the day. So having small systems lowers friction and increases consistency because the goal isn't to become a superhuman woman. The goal is to build a life that makes obedience and follow through automatic. And that's exactly what the ant shows us. When you have a process, you don't have to depend on motivation. And most importantly, you get things done. So let's recap the lessons again. Lesson number 1, seasons don't last forever. Lesson number 2, prepare before the storm. Lesson number 3, be consistent. Lesson number 4, create systems. And now let's move on to the last lesson. You weren't designed to carry your calling alone. Now when you look at the ants, they don't operate like a lone ranger. They are cooperating towards a shared mission. So they have different roles, but the same purpose. And that's wisdom. Because isolation makes everything harder. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says something like this. 2 are better than 1, for if they fall, one will lift up his companion. And it's not just about having people around. You have to ensure you have the right people who can help you stay steady when life gets heavy. Because one of the enemy's favorite strategy is to isolate purpose-driven women. Because you are usually strong for everyone else, but oftentimes you don't feel supported. You carry a lot, but you don't usually tell anyone. So you start burning out quietly. And here's the other aspect to that. When you're isolated, you are also more vulnerable to the comparison trap. Because you're alone with your thoughts, alone with your fears, alone with your fatigue. And that's when your mind starts spiraling. So you're scrolling, measuring, assuming, thinking you're the only one struggling. But the truth is, most women you admire have a support system you don't necessarily see. So they have mentors, prayer partners, coaches, a community. So you are comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, not realizing they have a support system in place. Look, even Jesus didn't do ministry alone. He had disciples, and he still had an inner circle. So if you want to stay consistent, stay healthy, stay faithful to your assignment, I want you to ask yourself, who helps me stay grounded? Who lifts me up when I'm tired? Who tells me the truth and not just what I want to hear? Because the ant's wisdom is clear. Your calling requires you to have a community. And so if you remember nothing else, I want you to remember this. Your calling requires you to have capacity. So we need to protect your mind like it matters. So I want you to stop comparing your winter season to someone else's summer. Stop waiting for a crisis to happen to start building your capacity. Stop going extreme and then disappearing. Stop trying to try harder with not having a system in place. Stop doing purpose alone. Now, you don't need to be like her, but you do need to be faithful in the lane that God put you. Because the devil loves a tired, distracted woman. Because a distracted mind cannot fully walk in purpose. So if you're a woman over 40, ready to reclaim your focus, protect your peace, and stop letting exhaustion steal your calling, join me for the 5-day Detox Challenge. A gentle, guided reset to help your body release what has been weighing it down and restore what has been missing. So click the link below to reserve your spot now. See you there.